I think, you know, the religious freedom is extremely important to us, extremely important, I think, as a value. You know, I looked at the 10 amendments Elliot was talking about and the First Amendment, and I thought to myself, well, I better check that. I think it starts out with freedom of speech. And for those of you that don't have your pocket constitution with you, actually the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And only then do you get free speech and assembly and all the rest. And I think because in some sense, if you've got freedom of religion, the other parts of that amendment follow on as corollaries. So freedom of religion is very important. But as lawyers say, hard cases make bad law. And if we force these regimes coming out of their history as a first issue to deal with that question of how far does freedom of religion reach, an issue that has bedeviled our country for 200 years, you will hobble their democracy. And I think that's Eliot's point. It's very difficult to draw that line. We're struggling to do it after 200 years. If we put that on these governments as a first-order business, they won't make it. So what should we be doing? I think something short of that, something that will enable the resolution of those questions but does not force them prematurely, and that is religious tolerance. And that's where I would make the focus. Marwan Muasher, who's known to a lot of you, I was on a panel with him a month or so ago, and he said something I thought was very profound. He said, you know, in the Middle East, neither Arab nationalism nor political Islam had a tradition of tolerance and pluralism. And that's what the Middle East needs. Now, why does he say that? Because if the Middle East cannot solve the issue of tolerance, then you're going to have a situation where the political authoritarianism of the Mubaraks is going to be replaced by religious authoritarianism, which is what the Middle East is now, either Shia oppressing Sunni, Sunni oppressing Shia, and both of them beating up on the Kurds and everybody else. That's the threat to democracy, I think, and freedom in the long term in the Middle East. So what does that mean? We, and Eliot is right, we have a role. We need to be pushing for religious tolerance, for an understanding that majority rule does not mean you get to impose your values on everybody else, and that there has to be some space between the state and religion. And interestingly enough, Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey helped in that in a speech he made in Cairo that really actually angered a lot of Islamists, because he came and he said, look, the state should be equidistant from all religions and no religions. And the state ought to run a system where all religions have a place. But the premise of that is going to be tolerance. And I think that's what we need, because if there is going to be stability over the long term, there has to be tolerance as an element of democracy. Because if we go to sectarianism, where one religious group is able to impose their view on the other, that is also an instability waiting to go viral.